So here we are, and who's confused? The deadline has come, December 31st has passed, and Jands,
hello,
importer of Shure, tell us what's going on with wireless now, because I'm confused.
You look confused. You look like there's some redundancy going down there. So basically, from January this year, the new regulations came into force on the LOPD, which of course we all knew. We had plenty of warning. But for operation in the broadcast bands, we're now restricted for 520 to 694 megahertz. So the old, what we were calling 700 megahertz products, can officially no longer be used this year. We get a lot of people ringing saying, but this section of the band hasn't been sold, so can I still use that? The regulations state that you may not operate that regardless of whether it's been sold, regardless of whether there's LT operations in your area or not. It's just, you can't do it.
What is that frequency?
Well, from 694 upwards, right? So we used to be able to go from 520 to 820. Now we're restricted 520 to 694. So from 694 to 820 is no longer permitted for wireless microphones.
Where is it free in there, though?
Where is it free? Well, off the top of my head, I can't tell you, but I have to look at the charts. But the way it's divided, there is a mid-band gap between the uplink and the downlink for the LTE services. So technically, that's not being used. But, like I say, that doesn't mean it's a free-for-all and you can just squat in there.
Damn it. Okay, so we need to be 520 to 694. And what happens if people are using their systems and they're still being able to, perhaps at the moment? What happens to them? The
symptom is that you'll just get an early dropout because basically you're competing against a raised noise floor. So the LTE systems are quite broad, like 10 meg wide, compared to a wireless microphone that might only be 200 or 300 kilohertz wide. So to our receiver, that just looks like the noise floors come up. You won't hear, well, on a decent system, you shouldn't hear any sort of noise or pops or anything disgusting like that. It's just that your mic will drop out early. You may have been able to get 100 metres away prior to the change, and post the change you may only get 10 metres away from the receiver and it'll suddenly drop out.
And legally, what happens to people if they're sprung?
That's a question for the ACMA. The ACMA are policing this. Now, they're realistic about this. They tend to just issue warnings first. But potentially, if you continue to operate, there's fines, there's confiscation of equipment, and potentially even jail time. They're all legal. You're okay.
I was just going to hide some. Why do some things work at sound check and then not at the gig?
Because, as I was saying before, the way the LTE bands are divided up, you've got a chunk of frequencies for the downlink, in other words, the base station transmitting down, and then another chunk of frequencies for the portable devices transmitting up. So the downlink tends to be live all the time, so that's easy to identify. There's a chunk of frequencies you can see in use. The uplink frequencies walk in with these. So if you're attempting to operate wireless mics in the uplink band, then at sound check, when the audience aren't there, it's probably going to be mainly free. So you'd be thinking it's okay. Then when the audience walk in and all start tweeting and updating using their phones, then that uplink chunk of frequencies all becomes live, the noise floor comes up, and you get your early dropouts that we were talking about before.
So it's a false economy for people to imagine they can continue using what they are if it's outside of 520 to 694. They're in a false economy.
Even if it's working, if you're in an area where maybe the LTE hasn't rolled out yet, you can bet it will, right? The telcos have paid billions of dollars for this spectrum. They want a return on investment. They're not going to sit idle on it. They're going to roll out services as fast as they can. It'll get you eventually.
All right, well, you heard it best and you heard it first. Jands, thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.